Welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day or evening. In today's story, OP found out his wife cheated on him with his gym trainer after he showed up to her work and saw them. He then followed AP home and told his wife about it. Now, OP's wife and AP are a complete wreck after what OP and AP's wife did to get revenge. Now, let's get into today's story to find out what happened. I was 22 years old when I decided to join a gym and build some muscle. It was there that I met my future ex-wife and trainer, who was 25 years old. She was amazingly fit. Whenever I worked out, she became my motivation. She'd joke with me, laugh, and ask me questions about my job and hobbies. I gained muscle under her watch and eventually asked her on a date. Throughout our dating relationship, she never shared anything about herself that I didn't instantly fall in love with. When my dad met her, he insisted that I pop the question. Looking back now, I know it was too soon. I think Dad and I were just excited at the thought of expanding our small family. We had a big wedding. My dad spared no expense. A few years later, we still didn't have a baby, but things seemed to be going fine. She was still a trainer at the gym, and I'd moved up in my dad's company. We spent lots of time together because we got home from work at the same time each day. We were open about our cell phones, but I never asked to check hers. I never felt like I needed to until 5 years later. My dad passed away, so I was basically running his business. I started getting home a little later, around 5 p.m., and I'd find her at home being a wonderful housewife and making dinner or something. Well, after a few months of this, she arrived home after me one night. This was odd because she never worked late or did anything without sending me a text. When I asked her where she'd been, she was surprised I didn't get her text. She showed me how she typed out a text to me but didn't push send. The text said that she was going to give a coworker a ride home because his car wouldn't start. This was just a red flag to me, and I knew something was up. She started taking her phone into the bathroom with her, and this was the second red flag. We never made a rule for this, but she'd never done it because she wanted to be in and out quickly. I waited a minute before I walked in on her, trying to see what was on her phone. She was definitely texting someone before she jumped out of her skin and looked like she was caught red-handed. After a verbal fight ensued, I was finally able to check her phone. It was a string of texts to a number that wasn't saved. It appeared that some of the texts were missing because the conversation didn't make sense. Only innocent enough sounding texts were left behind without context. The whole time I checked her phone, she was bright red. I asked for more information, but she swore it was the same friend who needed a ride home, and that nothing was going on. I pretended to let it go, but secretly decided to follow her to work the next day. I saw a male coworker greet her with a smile and hug. I returned later as they were getting off work, and saw him give her another hug. My blood was boiling. Who was this guy, and why was it so normal for him to touch my wife? They chatted about God knows what, until I texted her to say I'd be home late. She looked at the text with him standing beside her, and then leaned close to tell him something. They both walked to his car, got in, and left. I followed them to his house and sat in my car for a few minutes. Before I get out of the car, a woman knocks on my window. She demands to know who I am and why I'm outside of her house. Although I was very confused, I told her what was going on. As she listened, a look of concern spread across her face. She said that she'd been suspecting her husband of cheating with a coworker and thought he was bringing her here while she worked late. Tonight, she came home early without informing him, and that's when she saw my car. She invited me to join her while she knocked on the door. We held our breath until her husband answered the door. He turned white, and I could see beads of sweat appear on his forehead. He starts playing dumb and asking what's going on right before his wife explodes on him. Her screams urge my wife to rush to the door, adjusting her clothes as she makes eye contact with me. She immediately starts fighting back tears as she explains that she just wanted to come over and hang out with him, something that makes no sense and has no credibility at all. While the wife screams at her husband, I notice my wife's wedding ring is missing from her finger. I demand that she gets in my car, and she does. On the way to pick up her car, she would not admit that they had sex. I was trembling as I drove. My wife never showed me any signs of wanting something different from what we had. I asked her why she slept with him, but she denied it again. She said they were only supposed to hang out, and that she didn't know he was married either. When I asked her why her wedding ring was off, she told me it was because it pinched whenever she lifted weights. I didn't believe her, but I didn't make her leave the house either. A part of me wanted this to be a bad dream. She didn't go back to work, and for about 2 months, she lived each day in suspense and humility while she did her best to please me. I basically ignored her and all the questions my brain wanted answers to. Like, was she still secretly talking to this man? Why won't she admit she had sex when I know she did? Does she even want to be married? How could I ever trust her again? That's when I got an email from that man's wife. My email isn't hard to find if you know my name. She told me that her husband finally told her what happened, that my wife had been to their house at least 2 times before that, and that each time she had sex with her husband. She added that she was sorry to be the bearer of bad news and that she planned on informing their boss of the affair. It was the worst news of my life. Instead of talking to me about whatever was going through her head and trying to keep our marriage sacred, she went behind my back and slept with him. The level of betrayal was unspeakable. I confronted her, calling her a liar and showing her the email I received. She started crying and begging me to forgive her. She said that they had chemistry at work, and the thought of sleeping with him just crossed her mind. She said it was a mistake to go through with it, and that she's hated herself ever since it happened. I told her I didn't believe a damn word she said, because apparently she had gone back to his house more than once to sleep with him. It takes an awful lot of deceit and intent to keep going back like that. She cheated on me more than once with some guy she knew for about a month. I told her how upset I was that she never tried to talk to me about any of it while pretending she had no secrets from me. Because of her infidelity and lies, I filed for divorce. My dad raised me to be emotionally strong and to make decisions that need to be made. I'm almost glad he died before she did this, so that according to him, we lived happily ever after. But no. Instead of that, her affair and bad reputation became the hot gossip of our small town. The dude was kicked out by his wife around the same time I kicked out my ex. They were both fired, divorced at a young age, and labeled as cheaters. I heard he won't date her because he doesn't trust her. Go figure. A few weeks later, I took the betrayed wife out for dinner, and we had a good time. OP, I am very sorry your wife was unfaithful to you. People make mistakes, but when it comes to this level of betrayal, it's hard to recover from it. As long as you try to stay with her, you probably second-guess everything she said and never truly feel comfortable in the relationship. Marriage requires hard work and honesty, both of which seem far-fetched to that woman. She went back more than once to commit the same sin against you and was only remorseful after she was caught. This type of woman is not mature enough or ready for marriage, and sometimes it's a lesson learned too late. I am happy for you that you made the quick and accurate decision to get divorced. It can be difficult for people to make this decision, although it is often the better option when it comes to infidelity. Keep yourself number one in your life until you find someone who becomes just as important. Now let's get into today's second story. My ex and I have attended the same church since we were kids. Well, not anymore, and you'll understand at the end. We started dating each other when she was 20 and I was 21. Our parents were both strict in our religion and expected us to abstain from sex until marriage. We agreed at first, but it became quite a challenge and we did it a few times. Around the time I proposed, we began attending separate Bible study groups for men and women. Each group would discuss things like how important it was to keep yourself pure until marriage under God, what was expected of a Christian wife or husband, and stuff like that. These groups met at the same time once a week, and I would drive my fiancé home afterward. One night, I waited an extra 10 minutes for her to come out of the church. It wasn't too odd to me, and I didn't ask anything. She seemed happy and fine. The next week, I waited 15 minutes. This time, I asked what held her up. She said she likes talking to one of the leaders after the lesson to get a better understanding of it. I didn't want to push any further, so I let it go. The next week, as I'm waiting for her to come out of the church, one of the women from her group knocked on my window. She says she wants to let me know that my fiancé has been staying later to talk to a man that helps out with sound tech during their meetings. This really took me by surprise. She was staying later to talk to another man. I'd been under the impression only women were allowed in the group, including staff. When my fiancé finally got back to the car, I asked her about it. She got defensive and asked why it's a big deal for her to talk to a church leader about Bible lessons. I clarified that this man doesn't participate in the women's group. He's only there as a technical assistant. Then I asked why she was talking to him about the lessons of such a personal journey. She just shrugged and said she didn't think anyone from the church was off limits for Bible discussions. I asked her to stop talking to him altogether, and she agreed to stop so that I wouldn't worry. The next week, I was waiting for her to get back to the car when I got a text from her that said she'd already gotten a ride home from a girl in the group. This really upset me. The church doors only opened from the inside this late at night. I tried calling her several times, but she didn't answer. As a woman was walking back to her car, I asked her if she happened to see my fiancé inside. She said no, the room was empty. I drove to her house and knocked on the door. No one answered. I assumed it was because they were sleeping and I didn't have a key. I decided to give up for the night and had faith that the truth would soon be revealed. On Sunday morning, after the service, a church leader waited until my fiancé went into the bathroom to pull me aside and tell me some concerning news. We went into a little security room with some other church staff and lots of screens. They directed my attention to one screen and apologized for having to show me this. In the video, my fiancé can be seen with the tech man going into a room alone. They emerge later, looking pleased. I ask if they have video footage of the room they went into, and they say yes, but that I wouldn't want to see that. The man in question was most definitely not aware there was a camera in that room as well. I'm sure my face was bright red at this point. I hated her for embarrassing me like this. I still do a little bit. Someone left the security room to retrieve my fiancé and the man in question. Funny coincidence that they were chatting with each other when he found them. As soon as they enter the room, they know this is bad. The guy tries to leave immediately, but he's stopped by the pastor of the church. He says that we need to discuss this and the repercussions that will follow. After the clip of them going in the room played, my fiancé's tears started flowing, and she told me she was sorry. I told her that we were over and got her engagement ring back. She loudly sobbed while the pastor told the guy he's fired and may have charges pressed against him. He then left the room and I followed him, brushing past my ex. I followed him outside and heavily considered fighting him, but I didn't feel like I needed to. My fiancé caught up to me and started begging for forgiveness. I told her that she has ultimately shamed herself, her faith, and me. There's no way she can recover my trust, and it would be much easier for me to just move on and start over new. For the next few weeks at church, everyone was talking about her, him, and their shame. They didn't attend the church anymore. Everyone stole glances at me as I walked by, and only a few people attempted to console me about it. It didn't take long for me to decide I needed a new church. My ex lost all credibility with the people she held closest to her. I can only hope to find a good wife that holds the same values I do. Wow, OP. That is a very difficult thing to go through. It sounds like your ex and that guy got the shame and disgrace that they deserved. It just pains me that you were outcasted as well. You had your heart in a good place, attempting to do things properly when she decided to take advantage of you. The good news is that, like you expected, the truth did come out, and you have an opportunity to marry a woman that deserves your loyalty and dedication. Even if it feels like the world around you is falling apart, there is hope. Hope is stubborn and doesn't give up on us. As long as we are true to ourselves and practice self-love, we are on the right path. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened in both stories. Take care.